Hey guys, how's it going? Preparing here. So Path of Exile's first 8-hour solo race has just ended, and man am I tired from it. But I want to tell you guys a few things that I'm sure will be very useful when playing Path of Exile in general, and especially when doing some of these races. So I managed to get level 53 in the race. Crip hates desync, and it was one of my most poor races in terms of the early progression. Now, obviously, I haven't done a race in solo world over 3 hours, but the first 3 hours were horrible. I died at the 15-minute mark to desync, hence the name of the character, and following that, I proceeded to get the absolute worst RNG I've ever had. I didn't have a single piece of elemental gear, and I checked the jewelry on the vendor every single level, and the first piece I got was a garbage sword in Act 3. So it was an incredible struggle getting there, and nonetheless, just pushing it, best I could do, I ended up winning it. And I won it by quite a substantial margin, at least in the Templar category. The only person that came somewhat close was another Marauder who ended up getting a 250 damage maul with a 5-linked armor. So, that should tell you something. Now, there's a few things that I kind of plan out when doing these kinds of races, and I want to highlight these things so you guys can maybe understand the core of what it takes to level a character quickly. Because, people like to level characters, people die at hardcore, you want to level up all the good shit. So, let's get started. So the first thing that really gave me the big advantage, so all through normal, I was just struggling. I did Act 1 very poorly, Act 2 very poorly. The main thing to note in Act 2 normal is that you always skip like the optional zones, like skip the cave, skip the Fell Shrine area, just do only the stuff you need to do. I like to go right because, the early zones are lower level, then go left, and then proceed up. It's pretty standard stuff. One thing that's not standard is whenever there's a race that lasts over 3 hours, which this was actually the first in the solo category, you have to farm. So why is that? Well, if you've tried this, if you play through the game and just, kill stuff at your own will, do the quests, do that, you'll notice that right about where you reach ledge, where's ledge? Ledge 35, your character often is roughly level 32 or 33. And if you proceed at that pace, you'll actually be far too low level for the zones. And, this comes as a consequence to both being, sometimes too low level to even get good experience, but on the other hand, your character is just not going to be very strong. So, the monsters may take longer than they otherwise should. So you have to find a zone, an area that you can farm in, unless your character is unbelievably well geared, and probably not the case for most people. So the first game-winning move that I did this race, that I actually came from from nowhere, and I went to first. I farmed docks. I went to docks at like 27, and I farmed it I think until 32, maybe 33 actually. Just because my character sucked. I had no gear, I had absolutely nothing. I was just, complete garbage. I remember that, it was actually 33 and a half. And the reason I picked 33 and a half is I still had some of the zones to do, but before I got to the really difficult stuff, which is, Barracks and Lunaris Temple, I would be able to get 34. And the reason I wanted to get 34 is, while I don't think I can show you guys right now, but there's a version of the health potion which is labeled as Giant, and a Giant health potion heals for twice as much as the previous potion. So because of this, and actually the potions after the Giant potions don't heal for that much more. I mean, you have the Colossal, which are a good bit higher, and they don't heal for that much more, and it's just very incremental. But it starts off with the Giant, which is a level 34 potion. When you hit 34, you can go to the vendor, which normally is there but isn't here because I didn't do the cruel quests, and you can just buy them for 3 Scrolls of Wisdoms. And up to that point, I saved my currency, so I had transmutes and I had alterations, and I just altered potions until I got what I wanted. To finish Act 3 normal really easily, you need a potion that has curse immunity, because the vulnerability in Lunaris Temple is lethal. So first, I got my giant, I altered it until I got curse immunity, pretty happy with it. And then I did my second one, transmute it and altered it. And you don't need it, but it really helps to have an instant potion. I didn't have much currency because, like I said, my gears really sucked. So I ended up getting a Panicked, which is an instant when on low life. You typically don't want that. The best one is Seething, but Bubbling is also amazing if you can couple it with a good suffix. So Seething is the prefix for full instant, Bubbling is the prefix for half instant, but because Bubbling is half instant, it allows for suffixes that apply duration-based effects. So for instance, you can get like a curse immunity on a suffix on a Bubbling, but you couldn't get it on a Seething. That's the kind of stuff you need to be aware of. So I typically like to save my blue type of gear currency up until this point so I can absolutely get the flasks, because if you have these flasks, you can play recklessly. You can go curse immune, you can instant heal in between periods where your health is going up from the potion, and you can just power it out, pull as much as you want if you're really careful, if you know what you're doing. You're able to do that with the potions, and you're not able to do it without them. So that's what I did. As a result, I cleared the rest of Act 3 after docks significantly faster than the other Templars, and I actually caught up right just by doing that. And I was about at the same level when I got to Cruel. When I got to Cruel, one thing that I noticed that none of them did is none of them did the Tidal Island for the Hellrake quest. Now, if you're in a race format, this is more important than otherwise, but the second thing I want to highlight is that it's very important to have mobility if you're leveling. So this character uses 2 Quicksilvers, and I recommend you set up your characters to use 2 Quicksilvers as soon as possible. The build with Elemental Cleave, you're able to do this fairly early on, but the sooner the better, honestly. Try to get away by using a hybrid pot, so if you're struggling on mana, maybe use a mana pot and a hybrid instead of a health pot. But if you're fine, you just want to use the hybrids, just want to get that health up there. So getting the second Quicksilver is a big thing for 2 reasons. One, you can use a Quicksilver pretty much any time you're moving your character if you have 2 as opposed to 1. But secondly, getting the particular Quicksilver from this quest makes it over level, I believe, 4. And you need a Quicksilver over level 4 to get the Adrenaline suffix. Now, in my case, I transmuted it and altered it a few times, and I got Ample of Warding, which is a very good roll on a Quicksilver. So I stopped there because I only had like 2 more alterations, and the chance I would get a better one was pretty slim. But, I could have gotten the suffix Adrenaline, which is movement speed, which I later got on this health potion. So I've kind of highlighted very general things. The potions are extremely important. You can have a terribly geared character, suboptimal build, but if you have the potions to back it up, you can do a lot with the character, so it's definitely worth investing in that. The second part of investing in gear is rely to the prefixes and suffixes on gear. So I can show you guys my gear, pretty quickly here. Just the elemental damage on a fast weapon, elemental damage, fast weapon, attack speed. I ended up alching an Onyx Amulet. Found that. I think I bought that off a vendor. I think I bought off a vendor, alched it, it was garbage, saved the ring in my inventory until I got a Chaos, chaosed it to that. I think I alched these gloves. I found this belt with like 10 minutes left in the race. Prior to that, I was using this piece of garbage. And, pretty good boots, movement speed boots. I was using Chevron's pace prior to this, which were actually pretty mediocre. All in all, when it comes to gear, you need to know a few things. You need to know what gear makes your character the strongest. With Elemental Cleave, you want jewelry and gloves. So gloves, rings, and amulets. And this is particularly good because it's actually very difficult to get a good rare amulet. It's actually very difficult to get a rare onyx at all in a race. So if you're able to find an onyx or create one by putting an amulet with one of each color gem and then alching it, you can get something really nice like this. This is my first good item that I got in the race today at like the 3-hour mark or something crazy. The other thing is, when you're checking for rings, you want to save alteration orbs so you can buy blue rings from the vendor. I'm pretty sure this was a blue ring. If not, the other ones that I was using were. So that one was a blue ring, and I think I had another one here. That was a blue ring, and all these are from vendors. You can get some very good jewelry off of vendors if your class requires it, and even if it doesn't, getting that much life on a piece of gear is very, very helpful. But when it comes to using alchemy orbs and stuff like that, the amulet is good, the ring is good. If you have 2 bad rings, alching a ring is a good idea because the chance that you'll find 2 good ones is very small. When it comes to gloves, if you're using elemental-based damage, it's very important. So that's why alching gloves is also a pretty good idea. When it comes to weapons, again, if you use 2 weapons, alching 1 may be a pretty good deal. But you got to keep in mind the fact that anything that you may alch may drop better for you. At the same time, you want to balance that with the fact that you need to progress. You need the gear now. So you kind of need to judge by yourself where that needs to be and what kind of currency you need to be using. On the other hand, you have to be very smart about the currency that you're using. So for instance, I ended up using this serrated foil and this cutlass. I used my currencies on them. I used transmutes and alterations again on them, but I first made sure that they're item level 45. So you can check out the Path of Exile website to see the item level of each of the stats, but in my particular case, all I care about is the elemental damage. And you need to know where these brackets are to optimize the chance that you get what you actually want on these weapons. So for instance, the first bracket for elemental is like 3 or something, or level 1. And I believe if you kill someone off Hillock with like rings or gloves, it's like level 3, you can get the lightning roll. But those are all garbage. So at level 12, you can get all the good ones. You can get some pretty serious ones. And then it continues on this level was item level 45. Knowing these brackets will allow you to get the best result on average out of your currencies. So you have to look into that if you're trying to do like a race format. If not, you can kind of be more flexible. You can use the currencies to trade with shit. But it's always something that's very good to know. The last few parts are really just come down to experience, knowing the maps, knowing what gear to pick up, how to manage your currencies, what to check, and how to make your build. So in my case, the build was fairly straightforward, but one thing that you need to keep in mind when you're doing these builds, like these race builds or just trying to level a character, you always want to get a lot of hit points. So with my character, you can pretty much see that got a lot of hit points. I got more hit points there, more hit points there. I got some big damage nodes. So static blows is a big one, inner force is a big one. I also expect a lot into resists. Essentially, at certain brackets, you cannot do without resists, but if you can switch items around, you can kind of get by with it. But in my case, I was kind of struggling just from rare monsters doing like extra damage as cold, so I didn't want my cold to be at 20 because I was getting absolutely murdered. But in any case, it's very important to keep your health up. As you can see, my build, even though it's a race, is largely defensive, and as a result, I can play recklessly. So similarly, I want to touch up on this last note here. I showed people the build that I went with my Marauder with the Freeze Pulse, and at the beginning, all I get is health nodes. People are like, oh, I tried the Marauder build, but it sucks. I don't do any damage. I pull like 2 mobs, and they take forever to die. Well, the circumstance is always a balance. Especially if you're solo. If you're solo, your survivability can drive your damage, and that's how it worked with this character. That's how it worked with the Freeze Pulse Marauder. Getting a lot of survivability allows you to kill the monsters that are very difficult. At the same time, it allows you to farm the monsters that are very easy, almost as fast, sometimes faster. And the way you do that is, you just pull more of them. So instead of, being careful pulling like 2 mobs at a time, just run through the zone and get like 20 of them, 30 of them, 40 of them, however many you think you can handle, and kill those. Your kill speed can be dictated by your survivability. It does not have to be dictated by your offense. So keeping your survivability up is probably the most important thing, but you gotta have some damage to back it up. So never want to forget about the balance. Hopefully you guys have learned a few things, and maybe you guys can level up a little bit quicker the next time you gotta make a new character. Maybe just a few racing tips, and do a little better the next race. Hope you guys enjoyed my video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.